Hey everyone, I'm RV Micah and welcome to the show where I'm doing something a bit different today. I'm not really using a script or anything. I just want to give my unfiltered thoughts about the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. I know this is a bit late, but I just haven't had the time to record this since my work and school schedules have been kind of hectic. So before we start, I just wanted to sort of make it clear what my level of familiarity with the Sonic the Hedgehog series is. I'm a pretty decent big fan of it, the games at least. I'm not really that experienced with the spin-off material, like the cartoons and comics and whatnot. But here's the thing. My first exposure to the Sonic series was the hype and build up to the release of Sonic '06. So that might have colored my opinions of the series a bit in that I like most of the games in the series, but I also acknowledge that this is a dumb, really dumb series. It's, even at its best, it's just kind of stupid. But anyway, with that out of the way, Sonic the Hedgehog, the movie, I actually really enjoyed. And even putting aside all of the redesign nonsense, that didn't really improve the movie so much as just fix a mistake. The movie isn't improved. By the redesign, it just cancels out a huge mistake. So I'm not going to be talking about that. Although kudos to the people for the redesign. One thing I should point out is that this is very much a kids movie. If you've ever seen Hop, it's kind of the same deal, but the difference here is that this one is actually good. It actually had thought put into it. The people who made this clearly cared about the source material. I liked a lot of the jokes, not all of them, but it still got a chuckle out of me every once in a while. Let's talk about the story now. It's basically one of those movies that you've seen that's just about a cartoon character ending up in the real world, teaming up with a human, and just doing wacky hijinks. But here's the thing, this movie actually understands the character of Sonic the Hedgehog. Every interpretation of Sonic's been kind of differently, and this version of Sonic is very much a kid. He's immature, he's cocky, he's full of energy, and he's just so much fun to watch. He's a little annoying, but the movie seems aware of it at least, so that's something. Jim Carrey plays Dr. Robotnik in all of his cariness, and my thoughts on that performance are kind of interesting because there are a lot of points in the movie where it's very clear that Robotnik is just Jim Carrey is just being Jim Carrey. They just told him to do whatever, and then he just did his Jim Carrey thing. But there are scenes where he is basically allowed to shine through as Robotnik. There's one scene where he's going into this monologue about what he did to a school bully once, and that whole scene felt very Robotnik. Also, can I talk about the fact that when the feds call in Robotnik to look into Sonic the Hedgehog to try to track him down, they mention that he's responsible for the dissolution of at least one Middle Eastern country. So this version of Dr. Eggman is legitimately just a war criminal, and I find that amazing. So Sonic the Hedgehog is teaming up with this human cop named Tom. He's played by James Marsden, who I guess is just cursed to forever act opposite of CG furry animals. Like the Easter Bunny from Hop. I guess Beast from the X-Men counts since he was Cyclops. But anyway, I went into this movie expecting the human element to be the worst part of the movie, but I was honestly pleasantly surprised. James Marsden as Tom is a legitimately pretty likable character. He's a small town cop from the town of Green Hills, Montana, and all he wants to do is go to the big city and prove himself as a real cop, solve some actual crimes. And he just wants to get away from Green Hills. Much like the Sonic fan base, I should add. But the thing is, by the way, I have a friend of mine who we talked about this movie after we saw it, and I wanted to include him in this video, but his schedule and mine are hilariously incompatible. He pointed out how interesting it is that even though he's this small town cop who doesn't really do much, aside from just help the locals out with random stuff, the movie never really presents that as a bad thing. Him learning to, his character arc is about learning to sort of be happy where he is and, learning to appreciate his home and whatnot. And actually, one of my favorite lines when he's sort of talking to Sonic about the fact that he doesn't feel like he's a real cop, how he's people ask me to jumpstart their cars and, anyone can do that. And then Sonic's response is, yeah, but they don't ask anyone. They ask you. And I just love that line. Also, on the topic of things that I'm pleasantly surprised about, in the movie, Tom is married to this woman who I don't remember who plays her. I think the character's name is Maddie. And when I saw the movie for the first time, I was like, oh boy, the events of this movie are going to just drive a wedge between them, and we're going to get a bunch of bickering and fighting between them. But Actually, no. Their relationship is actually remarkably stable throughout the entire movie. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How, like, for a married couple to just be a happy couple throughout an entire movie? I mean, between this and the family dynamic and Ant-Man and the Wasp, it made me just realize how exhausted I am by, like, family drama in movies. And we don't get to see enough happy families just being happy families in cinema. And I'm just kudos to this movie. But yeah, like, the human element in this movie, I was pleasantly surprised by. I don't think it's the best part of the movie. I mean, there's a scene where Tom and Sonic go to the salty spittoon or whatever and just do stuff. That scene dragged on a bit longer. Although it does do that scene where, remember those Quicksilver scenes from the new X-Men movies? Sonic does something like that. It's pretty fun. And it actually comes back later in a really interesting way, actually. Like, it subverts that whole trope pretty well towards the end, which I'm not going to get into until the spoiler corner. But, yeah, like, the action in this movie is also pretty good. Like, the effects are pretty good, although there are a few points where it's pretty clear Sonic isn't actually there. Yeah, the action's great. Like, there's this one car chase thing in the middle of the movie where where Tom and Sonic are being chased in Tom's car by one of Robotnik's robot tanks. And it's really interesting that they take down the tank and then it becomes sort of a Russian nesting doll of robots. Like the tank is destroyed, then this other robot with wheels pops out of it. That's destroyed, but then this other robot with wheels pops out of it, and then that's destroyed, and then the little floating iBot comes out of it. It's cool. It's fun. And that the final battle between Sonic and Robotnik is also pretty fun. Like, I just want to bring that up. Like, the action in this is pretty solid. This movie actually very much frames the story as a superhero origin story, which is really interesting. It's kind of an interesting direction to take the character. The comedy is also pretty good. I mean, it's not the best. I mean, it is a kid's movie after all. Like, so you can't expect it to be that great. So, there's fart jokes and then there's flossing. This is my best approximation of what flossing looks like. But stuff like that I'm willing to let slide because this version of Sonic is very much a kid. And yeah, and even the fart joke I was willing to let slide because they paired it up with a chili dog reference, which the mild casual Sonic fan in me got a chuckle out of that. Oh yeah, something else I need to bring up about Sonic. Before this movie, I didn't realize that Sonic's existential dread of dying alone was something I needed. Like this, they really pile on the pathos for him in this one. The first 5 minutes of the movie take place in Sonic's world, which is absolutely gorgeous, by the way. It takes place in the world you sort of see in the games. He's forced to come to Earth and hide here because his quills have like these electrical properties that a lot of bad guys are coming after him to sort of take advantage of, like the Echidna tribe from the games, actually. It's kind of an interesting inclusion there. So he's just sort of bumming around Green Hills, just like sort of like having this one-sided relationship with the town, like just sort of like acting kind of like Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy, actually. Just without, like, he sort of enjoys Earth culture without actually, like, interacting with anyone except Crazy Carl. Actually, one of my favorite joke in the movie was, like, when, like, Crazy Carl is the crazy old guy in town who's the only one who knows Sonic is real and keeps trying to prove it to the town, and when he shows off a drawing of what he calls the Blue Devil. He shows off a drawing of what he looks like. And I'm not going to give it away, but that drawing is the best joke in the entire movie. Yeah, like, it's honestly kind of, like, you actually really feel for Sonic. Like, someone so outgoing and energetic and just full of life. It's absolute torture for him to just have to be alone for so long. Although I will admit that a lot of the pathos in this movie is derived from just how gosh darn cute Sonic is. And if they'd used the original design from the first trailer, I can guarantee you that none of that would have worked. Although I have to imagine, like, the original cut of that movie is probably somewhere. So in terms of complaints about the movie, like I said, a few of the jokes fell kind of flat, and again, the flossing. I'm going to bring up exactly why, like, more specifics of that particular joke later in the spoiler section, but another problem I had is the way product placement, like, this movie kind of lays on the product placement pretty thick. Like, there's a scene early on where it lingers on a shot of someone on Zillow for just a couple seconds too long, and then, of course, there's blatant Olive Garden product placement, although I will admit, the way that Olive Garden comes up in the ending of the movie is friggin' hilarious. Yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I was pleasantly surprised by it, and I was originally going to give it a 7 out of 10, but the more I really think about it and talk about it and talk about what I liked about it, the more I start to see it as actually well above average. So, I'm going to be merciful. I'm going to give it an 8. I'm going to give the Sonic the Hedgehog movie an 8 out of 10. Those are my thoughts. Although, again, it is very much a kid's movie, but any parents watching this, if your kids really want to see it, it's harmless. Like, you might enjoy it. You might get a couple laughs out of it because there are some good jokes in it. Those are my thoughts on the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, spoiler free. I'm gonna get into spoilers in a bit, so if you don't want to be spoiled, if you haven't seen the movie yet, now's your chance to escape. Oh wait. I'm guessing that those of you who don't want to be spoiled have left already. So I'm going to talk about spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Tails is in the after credits scene. He looks friggin' great, and I honestly, there are 2 after credits scenes in this movie. Well, mid credits, I should say. Like, there's nothing at the very end. That make me really interested for what a sequel could bring. Like, Jim Carrey is great as Robotnik, but there's a scene at the end where he's turning into, like, getting insane disheveled and, like, shaved himself bald. His mustache is big and bushy. He actually does look spot on to the Dr. Robotnik from the games. And even his voice starts to sort of gradually starts to mutate into the Mike Pollock grovel, In terms of other spoilers, like I said, I didn't mind the flossing too much, but here's the thing, like, it happens twice in the movie. The first time it happens is Sonic doing a victory dance over when he destroys that robot, like I mentioned. And he's this energetic kid, so I can buy him being, like, caught up in the adrenaline of the moment. But the second time it happens is towards the end when he's shown off his new room after Tom and his wife basically adopt him. And he's like, there's this adorable moment where he's just like, oh my gosh, I love it, I love it, I love it. And he's just like running around and just enjoying it. And then he just starts flossing in the middle of it. And yeah, it just kind of kills the emotion of the scene. Like, it's a cute scene, but then he flosses and I'm just thrown out of it. Okay, so the Quicksilver bit. There's a couple points when time slows down and you see Sonic just interacting with the world around him in heavy slow-mo like Quicksilver did in the X-Men movies. In the climax of the movie, when Dr. Robotnik has gained access to Sonic's power from a stray quill he found and, like, implants it into his machine, he gets the same super speed as Sonic, so, like, his machines do anyway. And there's this really cool moment where Sonic is doing the slow-mo thing and just having a good time, and then Robotnik catches up to him. And you just have the horrified moment of realization when Sonic realizes that someone's actually catching up to him. And it's just such an insanely cool moment. Those are the only really spoilery things I have to talk about. Like I said, the movie's really good, and although part of me feels like it's better enjoyed for what it could possibly set up for a sequel than what it actually is. So, in the end, I guess, that's all I really got to say about Sonic the Hedgehog. I actually do recommend it. Go see it. I don't really know how to close out the video, so you know what? Here's a cat. I don't know how else to end this video, just there's a cat. He's normally, like, he just turns into a potato whenever he's on camera. I don't know why.